Hello everyone. Today we will be discussing about the topic genetic code. Myself, Dr. A. Madhavi, Assistant Professor of Microbiology from GTCW Breakup Meet. The genetic code is the code language which is read by mRNA during the process of translation. Now let us see how this genetic code was cracked. The scientists Marshall Nirenberg and Heinrich Matthey, they worked at National Institute of Health and they have done series of experiments to crack this genetic code, and they were among first to characterize some of the codons. They made possible the in vitro synthesis of protein, and they also synthesized RNA strands in vitro. Now coming to the general characteristics of genetic code, it is written in a linear form of ribonucleotide bases like mRNA. The codons are present on mRNA, right? So the codons are in a linear form, and each word consists of three ribonucleotide letters, or three bases are read as one codon, and the code is unambiguous. Unambiguous means each triplet is specific for each codon is specific for specific amino acid, and the code is degenerate. It means the given amino acid can be specified by more than one triplet codon, or in other words, one amino acid is having more than one codons. The code is commaless. Whatever sequence is present on mRNA, it is read continuously by RNA, ribosome in a continuous manner. There is no comma or full stop in the genetic code. Once translation begins on mRNA, codons are read one after the other without any break until the stop codon is reached or stop signal is reached. The code contains one stop codon and one start codon and three stop codons. Okay, one is start codon, that is AUG, and there are three stop codons. The code is non-overlapping, means uh, first three bases will be one codon and the next three bases will be second codon. The code is nearly universal with only minor exceptions. It is similar in all the organisms except a few deviations. A single coding dictionary is used by almost all viruses, prokaryotes, archaea, and eukaryotes. It means the code is same in all the organisms. Now, the genetic code uses ribonucleotide bases as the letters. First point we will discuss in detail. This is the DNA molecule. From the DNA, this whatever sequence is present on DNA, there are genes present on DNA. Genes are nothing but specific sequences present on the DNA. So this is the DNA. So after transcription, we'll be getting mRNA, and on the mRNA there will be codons. This is the three bases are coding for one codon. First AUG, this is the start codon, and next three bases are the second codon, and another next three bases are the third codon, and so on. So after translation of mRNA, the message present on the mRNA will be translated into a series of amino acids on the polypeptide chain. So this is giving a protein after the process of translation. This is the basic process which is happening in the cell. So here we are at this point of cracking this triplet codon. What is the language used here? Like how what codons are coding for which amino acids? How it is found out? We all these points will be discussing in this session. So even though genetic information is stored in DNA, code is that is translated in proteins resides in RNA. So as we discussed, the codon is present on mRNA. It is having four nucleotides, could specify 20 amino acids. So here the question is, there are only four bases on mRNA, that is adenine, thymine, sorry, adenine, guanine, cytosine, and uracil. Okay, so using these 4 codons, we have to get 20 amino acids, like, or these 4 codons should be able to code for 20 different amino acids, because we have found that we know that there are 20 amino acids in a cell. So all the 20 amino acids should be coded by using the combination of these 4 bases. So first is evidence for the triplet code. How um, people found out that the codon is a triplet, or 3 bases are together coding for a single amino acid. This conclusion came from some calculations. Like, the question is, how many RNA bases can specify one amino acid? Okay, so if a codon consisted of only one mRNA base or one base, okay, then how many codons we can get? We can get only 4 codons, but here we have to code for 20 different amino acids, so minimum the number should be 20 here. So this possibility is ruled out, and the second possibility is taking the combination of 2 bases. 2 bases means 4 square, 4 into 4, we'll get 16 unique codons. Okay, so 16 codons will be coding for only 16 amino acids. Here again, the 20 is higher than the number 16, so this possibility is also ruled out. And the next possibility is using of a triplet code, or 3 bases as a single codon. So here, if we assume that the codon is a triplet, then we'll be getting 64 combinations, or 64 codons, or 64 words. 4 into 4 into 4, we'll be getting 64 combinations. So here, this number 64 is sufficient for coding of 20 amino acids. And if we go for 4 letter codon, it will be giving 256 combinations, or 256 codons, which is not required here. So how this the scientists Francis Crick, Leslie Barnett, Brenner, and Watts Tobin, they provided the evidence for triplet code. What they have done is, they have carried out frame shift mutations by inserting a single nucleotide, and they have checked the changes happening after the mutation, and then they exposed the chemicals that add or remove 1, 2, or 3 bases at the R2 locus of bacteriophage, and examined their reproduction on E. coli. Okay, in this experiments, they have added 1 base at a time, 2 bases, and then 3 bases, and they have recorded the observations. So this is the experiment. This is the original RNA sequence, and this is the amino acid sequence. Okay, so when they have added 1 base here at this position, right, what happened is, there was a frame shift mutation. The entire sequence of amino acids has changed from this point. Entire sequence is changed. Then they have added 2 bases. Again, the sequence of amino acid is changed, and then they have added 3 bases, and then they could observe that one new amino acid they got in the second position after aspartic acid, they got leucine. But after leucine, the sequence of amino acids which was there in the first case, or in the normal case, it was same as in the uh, addition of 3 bases. So they got some idea that maybe the codon is a triplet codon. So these experiments were done in a T4 phage. Next, evidence for non-overlapping code. So with the previous experiment, it was found that the codon is a triplet code. Now coming to non-overlapping, evidence for a non-overlapping code. Non-overlapping means, here, if this is the codon, this is the sequence. Okay, if the code is overlapping, if the code is overlapping, first is codon will be AUG, and the second codon will start from the second base, that is UGC, and the third codon will start from the third base, GCC, and so on. So this is the overlapping code. Okay, If the genetic code is overlapping, we'll be getting 7 mm, codons from this sequence. Okay, if it is non-overlapping, we'll be getting only 3 amino acids. So they found that after translation, they got only 3 codons from the given sequence. If it was overlapping code, they would have got 7 amino acids, which was not the case. Next. Even though the genetic code is non-overlapping, it is possible to read any DNA or RNA in 3 different reading frames depending on the start base. Okay, now we got some idea that it is a non-overlapping code, but there can be change in the sequence of amino acids getting after translation based on the start site. If this is the sequence, if we start from the first base, the sequence will be methionine, proline, and lysine. If we start from the second base, the sequence of amino acids will be cysteine, proline, and arginine. And if we start from the third base, that is guanine, we'll be getting alanine, glutamine, and aspartic acid. So based on the starting base, the sequence of amino acids will vary. Now, evidence for a commaless and degenerate code. Here, commaless means there should not be any space or there should not be any stopping in between the codon. And degenerate means one amino acid is coded by many codons. Okay, so here Crick hypothesized on the basis of genetic evidence that code would be commaless. Crick has said that maybe codon is genetic code is commaless. Okay, so here we have to get 20 amino acids from 64 codons. So first we have to understand what is the work of remaining 44 coding codes, right? So more than one codon specifies the same amino acid. Here the concept of degeneracy comes, or degenerate codon comes, right? As the codons are extra, they are coding like one amino acid is coded by more than one codon. Next, the code contains one start and 3 stop codons. Here, this is the start codon and these are the stop codons. AUG is the start codon, UGA, UAA, and UAG. Occur, opal, and these are the stop codons. And the code is nearly universal. All life evolved from the common ancestor have the same mRNA codons to specify the same amino acids. It is found that almost in all the organisms, the codon is similar. The same codon or the combination of the codons is giving the same combination of amino acids. So there are some exceptions to this genetic code. For example, mitochondria and single-celled eukaryotes, that is, in ciliated protozoa, the codon is somewhat different. These deviations may be tolerated because they do not affect the major repositories of DNA. As the quantity of our DNA is very less in these organisms, like mitochondria and protozoa, so there won't be any disturbance in the genetic code. Now, the code is unambiguous. Which codon specify which amino acid? Like here, unambiguous means uh, the specific codon is coding for a specific amino acid. It is already fixed and it is not going to change. So how they found which amino acid is coded by which codon? So they have synthesized first synthetic RNA having poly-U, polyuracil, and they got the polypeptide chain of phenylalanine. Okay, so with this they understood that UUU is coding for phenylalanine. Likewise, they have synthesized RNA having polyadenine. They got lysine amino acid. Polyguanine has given glycine. Polycytosine is given proline, poly, and they have made some combinations AU. They got isoleucine and tyrosine. So they got some idea that AUA is coding for isoleucine and UAU is coding for tyrosine. And Another combination, likewise they have used different combinations, and they could get idea of different which codon is coding for which amino acid. Next, Marshall Nirenberg and Heinrich Mette experiments. So what the scientists have done to get the knowledge of genetic code. They have synthesized simple mRNA molecules by adding some chemicals and structures needed for translation extracted from the E. coli. Okay, from the E. coli, they have taken all the machinery required for the translation, and they have added some chemicals to the test tube, and they have synthesized mRNA molecules. So likewise, in the previous table, we have seen polyuracil has coded for phenylalanine and so on. So 60 of the possible 64 codons specify particular amino acids. 3 are start codons and one is 3 are stop codons and one is start codon. This means that some amino acids are specified by more than one codon. Here codon degeneracy is there. For example, both UUU and UUC encode phenylalanine. Here codon degeneracy is one amino acid is coded by more than one codons. Here this is the table of genetic code. Here we can see this is the these are the bases UCAG. Here also UCAG. So first letter we are taking from left side U, second letter from the top, and the third letter from the right side U. U U U U U C U U A U U G. Likewise, we got all the 64 codons here, and this first two codons are coding for phenylalanine. The next six codons are coding for leucine. So likewise, there are three stop codons and one start codon, and another 60 which are coding for different amino acids. So almost all amino acids are specified by 2, 3 or 4 different codons. Three amino acids are coded, example arginine, serine and leucine are coded by 6 codons. Methionine and tryptophan are coded by single codons. In many codons specifying the same amino acid, the first two positions are the same, but the third position is differing. Okay, whatever is the codons coding for the same amino acid, it is observed that first out of the three bases, first two bases are similar, and they are differing only in the third base. Now coming to the verbal hypothesis, this concept of verbal hypothesis is postulated by Crick. He predicted that the initial two ribonucleotides of the triplet codon are often more critical than the third member in attracting the correct tRNA. In the process of translation, there will be mRNA ribosomes, and based on the sequence present on the mRNA, particular tRNA will be coming to the site of protein synthesis carrying the required amino acid. So the Crick postulated that maybe the two bases in the triplet code in the sequence of three bases, first two bases are more important than the third base. So this concept is called as verbal hypothesis. He hypothesized that hydrogen bonding at the third position would be less spatially constrained. So as the third base is differing in most of the codons coding for the same amino acid, so first two bases are more important. In addition, it may also need not to adhere strictly to the base pairing rules. So the third base is not required to strictly adhere to the base pairing rules. So this is the summary of genetic code. The sequence of bases are in a linear form, and each codon is having 3 letters in it. and the code is unambiguous, means it is exactly the same, or there is no doubt in the codon sequence, and the code is degenerate, means one amino acid can be coded by more than one codon. The code contains one start and three stop codons. The codons are 64 codons. In that, one is start codon and the three are stop codons. The code is commaless. There is no gaps or there is no comma or full stop in the codon. It is a continuous code. The code is non-overlapping. All the three bases will go in a sequence. There is no overlapping in the code, and the code is nearly universal. It means almost all the organism, the same codon language is being seen. Hello everyone. Today's topic is structure of DNA. Myself, Dr. A. Madhuri, Assistant Professor of Microbiology from Government Degree College, Begumpet. So, today we'll learn about the structure of DNA. DNA stands for deoxyribose nucleic acid. First, we have to know the full form, that is deoxyribose nucleic acid. So, this deoxyribose nucleic acid or DNA is composed of four deoxyribonucleotides. They are named as deoxyadenylate, deoxyguanylate, deoxycytidinylate, and thymidylate. So, these are the four um, nucleotides which are present in the DNA. First, you have to understand that there are four bases: adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine, and they are connected with phosphate and sugar. So, altogether, sugar, phosphate, and base together are called as nucleotide. So, such nucleotides are of four types. Okay, when they are connecting to sugar and phosphate, they are making nucleotides, and such nucleotides are of four types. They are deoxyadenylate, deoxyguanylate, deoxycytidylate, and thymidylate. Right. Next, these units are linked by 3' to 5' phosphodiester bond to form a long polypeptide chain. As in protein, amino acids are joined by peptide bond. Here in nucleic acids, nucleotides are joined by phosphodiester bond. This is the bond formed between two phosphates through ester linkage. And nucleotide is formed by combination of base, sugar, and phosphoric acid. Just now we have discussed nucleotide is a combination of base, sugar, and phosphoric acid, three components, right? Next, 3' hydroxyl end of one sugar is linked to 5' hydroxyl of another sugar through a phosphate group. So, when the chain is going, like sugar will be having 1' to 5' carbons. So, 3' carbon of one sugar is linked to the 5' carbon of the adjacent sugar. Next, here we can understand clearly. See, this is the phosphoric acid, this is the sugar, this is the phosphoric acid, this is the sugar, and to the sugar there is a base attached here. Here there is a thymine, here cytosine, this is the adenine. This is the single strand of DNA, right? One end there is a 5' phosphate, and at the other end there is a 3' hydroxyl group. Okay, so this is the sugar molecule and this is the phosphoric acid and this is the base. Together this combination of three molecules is called as nucleotide, right? So here three bases are there: thymine, cytosine, and adenine, and they are linked to each other by phosphodiester bond. This bond is called as phosphodiester bond. So the base sequence is of paramount importance. In DNA, sequence is more important because it is the sequence which results in the formation of a protein, or it is responsible for the sequence of amino acids in a protein, which in turn decides the function of a structure or function of a protein. So ultimately the sequence of the DNA is more important. Genetic information is encoded in the specific sequence of bases. It is the sequence which codes for the information or which passes on the information to later generations. Next, the deoxyribose and phosphodiester linkages are the same in all the repeating nucleotides. Okay, the sugar or the linkages, the basic units, they are same in all the organism. Therefore, the message will be conveyed even if the base sequences alone are mentioned as shown. As the phosphodiester bond and sugar is common, so the sequence present in DNA is mentioned in the sequence of bases like this. This is the 5' and this is the 3', and here we are showing the sequence in the by writing thymine, cytosine, adenine. We are not representing any phosphate phosphate group or sugar here in this sequence. This would convey all the salient features of the polynucleotide. Here we can understand the sequence of the polynucleotide. Poly means many, nucleotide means nucleotide, that is a combination of base sugar and nitrogen, base sugar and phosphate. Next, polarity of DNA molecule. In the DNA diagram, we have seen there is a 5' and a 3' end. At the end, there was phosphate group, and at the base, there was a hydroxyl group. This is the polarity of the DNA. Now, coming to the Watson and Crick model, here these are the scientists. He is the Watson and he is the Crick, James Watson and Francis Crick. These two scientists, they have designed the structure of nucleic acid, that is DNA. Okay, so in this diagram, if we can see, this is the phosphate sugar backbone, and these are the bases, okay, which are joined to each other. Bases, they are present like a steps inside the ladder, and here if it is a 5' end, the other end will be of the same strand, it will be 3' end. If this is the 3' end, the other end of the same strand will be 5' end, right? So here this is a double helical structure. Double means double strands, two strands are there. Helical because they are intertwined in a helical form, and adjacent bases are separated by 0.34 nanometers. If this is the strand, phosphate sugar backbone, right? On these bases are there. These bases are separated by 3.4 nanometers, 0.34 nanometers. Diameter or width of the helix is 2 nanometers. Here the diameter, this much diameter is equal to 2 nanometers. Now, base pairing rule. So how these bases will pair up with each other? Always adenine will pair with thymine and guanine will pair up with cytosine. Okay, always adenine will pair up with thymine and guanine will pair up with cytosine. There is no change in this pairing. Okay, and always there will be double bond between adenine and thymine and triple bond between guanine and cytosine. So this information has come from the experiments conducted by Shargaf. Shargaf has taken samples of different organisms, plants, animals, and other microorganisms also. He has checked the base ratio in all the organisms, and he through his experiments he came to some conclusion that the number of adenines are always equal to number of thymines, and number of guanines is always equal to number of cytosines. So by this conclusion and other information given by Rosalind Franklin through X-ray diffraction studies, she has given the information that there is a regular distancing of there are points located at a regular distance of 3.4 nanometers and 34 nanometers, and there is a width of 2 nanometers. Everything, this kind of information was given by Rosalind Franklin through X-ray diffraction studies, and Maurice Wilkins was the professor of Rosalind Franklin. Now, and the bonds present between these bases are hydrogen bonds. Next, Watson and Crick model of DNA structure. Here, DNA consists of two uh, po- polydeoxyribonucleotide chains twisted around one another in a right-handed double helix. Okay, in this single sentence, much information is given. It is DNA is having two, that is two strands are there. What are they? Polydeoxyribonucleotide chain. Poly means many, deoxy means deoxyribose sugar, and nucleotides are, as I said, it is the combination of base sugar and phosphate. Okay, so these strands, there are two in number, and they are twisted around each other in a right-handed helix manner. Right-handed helix. The bases are located perpendicular to the helix axis, whereas the sugars are nearly at right angles. So as we have seen in the diagram, the sugars are in the backbone and bases are perpendicular to the helical axis. Now, as we have seen, always two strands are complementary to each other. There are two strands of DNA, so they are complementary. What do you mean by complementary? If in there is adenine in one strand, definitely there should be thymine in another strand, so that they can pair up. If guanine is there in one strand, there should be cytosine on another strand, so that they can pair with each other. And this was given by Chargaff's rule. Next, hydrogen bonding. We have seen between adenine and thymine, there are two bonds, that is double bond, and between guanine and cytosine, there is always a triple bond, three hydrogen bonds. Next, spatial alignment of helix allows only purine to pyrimidine base pairing. Why always base pairing between one purine and one pyrimidine? Why not two purines or two pyrimidines? Is the diameter of the DNA is fixed. Okay, so to get this particular diameter of 20 nanometers, always a purine should pair up with pyrimidine. If two purines pair up, it will be a bulge in the DNA structure. If two pyrimidines will be are pairing up, there will be a narrow part in the DNA. So to avoid this, always a purine should pair up with pyrimidine. A mispairing will disturb the stable. So AT and GC base pairs have almost the same shape. Always if adenine is pairing with thymine and guanine is pairing with cytosine, it is giving uniform shape. But if there is a mispairing, there will be disturbance in the shape of the DNA. Now, these two strands are anti-parallel to each other. If you can see here, this strand is 5' to 3' and this strand is 3' to 5'. What they are parallel to each other, they are running parallel, they are beside to each other, but as rail track, they are parallel to each other, but they are anti-parallel. Anti-parallel means 5' and this strand 5' and is at the top, whereas this strand 5' and is at the base. So they are running in a opposite direction but parallel to each other. That is why it is called as anti-parallel in nature. Now, each strand acts as a template for the synthesis of opposite strand during the replication process. Now the question here is how the replication occurs. During replication, two strands will separate from each other and each strand will act as a template. Means this strand will also synthesize one daughter strand and this strand will also synthesize one daughter strand. Next, the spiral has a pitch of 3.4 nanometers per turn. Now, the rotation or the turning of the helix is giving 3.4 nanometers per turn. And with a single turn, 10 base pairs are seen. In this single turn, around 10 base pairs are present. Thus, adjacent bases are separated by 0.34 nanometers. Well, the distance between adjacent bases is 0.34 nanometers, and each turn is having 10 nucleotides, and the distance for each turn is 3.4 nanometers, and the diameter or width of the helix is around 2 nanometers. If you see this diagram, this is the major groove. In this helix, there is a major groove and minor groove. Okay, this is the major groove and smaller groove is called as minor groove. This is around 1.2 nanometers, whereas minor groove is around 0.6 nanometers. Now, these grooves are helpful for interaction with the proteins. Now, stacking of base pairs stabilize the double helix by hydrophobic effect and confrontation of the ring systems. Now, the double helix structure is more stable when they are coming to coming together. Two strands are stable when they are coming together and they are forming a hydrogen bonds, then single-stranded structure. And DNA is the storehouse of genetic information. Now, the basic difference between DNA and RNA is hydroxyl group at 3' position, and there is a difference in the base also. In DNA, there is a thymine, whereas in RNA, there is a uracil in place of thymine. Now, denaturation of DNA strands. Denaturation is nothing but separation of the DNA strands. They may be denatured and separated by heating. This process is called as melting of DNA. This melting is of DNA. The temperature required for melting of DNA is given by Tm, or melting temperature. It is called as melting temperature. Is the temperature when half of the helical structure is denatured. Tm, or melting temperature, is the temperature where half of the DNA is denatured. At lower temperature, melted strands are reassociated. This is called annealing. If the temperature is not sufficient to completely separate the DNA strands, they will again reassociate, and this process of reassociation is called as annealing. When the DNA is denatured, unstacking of bases occur, resulting in increased absorbance at 260 nanometers, and this is called as hypochromicity. Like when two strands are separated, when the two strands of DNA are getting separated, the bases which are exposed, they will absorb the radiation at 260 nanometers. Due to this, there will be increased what do you say, absorbance of radiation. That process, that effect is called as hyperchromic effect. Now, higher organization of DNA. Till now, we have discussed just the simpler form of DNA structure. In higher organisms, like in eukaryotes, DNA is organized inside the nucleus. Around the DNA, there is a nuclear membrane, and double-stranded DNA is wound around histones to form nucleosomes. This is the structure of the nucleosome. Here, this is the DNA strand, and these the proteins which are present inside are histone proteins. They are forming an octamer. Around the octamer, this DNA is coiling around. This is happening to fix the DNA in a small nucleus. Lengthy DNA is fixed in a small nucleus. So these are the nucleosomes, whatever we have seen in the last slide. These are the nucleosomes. Then they will coil again. This is called as a 10 nanometer fiber. It will coil around coil, and it forms 30 nanometers fiber, and it will undergo further supercoiling, and it will form extended chromosome that is having 300 nanometers. Then it will form a chromosome. As we know this, in humans at least, we know there are chromosomes. So these chromosomes are made by coiling of this DNA strands. So with this, we have seen brief structure of DNA, brief introduction about the structure of DNA.